I just wanted to make sure that you listeners are listening to the Drapetomaniac podcast on doayamedia.com. You are, right?
Peace, family, and welcome to this edition of the Drapetomaniac podcast. This is Ayapo Yapa, the HDIC, that is the head Drapetomaniac in charge, and I'm here with my lovely wife,
Angela. Hello.
And we're here to have conversations on how to get off this plantation. Well, today what we're going to talk about, I'll let you in on a little secret. Whenever we're about to do a podcast, sometimes it's at the very last moment that we decide on a subject. And this is one of those cases. And Angela brought up the subject of ownership of another human being, or whether it's possible to do such, and so on. But I thought that would be a good subject to explore. So, with no further ado, here we go. So you can start out.
Yeah, I didn't necessarily bring up the topic of whether it's possible to own another person,
Right.
but just kind of exploring the idea of ownership.
Mm-hmm.
And you were like, "Oh, that's a good idea," and then I'm like, "I don't think I want to talk about it." And then you said, "No, it's good." And then I said, "What are you thinking about the ownership where whites think they can own black people? Are you thinking about parents thinking they can own their children? Are you thinking about spouses or girlfriend and boyfriends feeling like they can, or male, whatever, partners feeling like they own each other?"
Right.
What you were going to say?
It was all of the above. And, in particular, this idea of white people in ownership of our people, because that's always the context we speak in anyway.
Mm-hmm.
And I forget what we were watching the other day, but there's always this thing, or I'll put it like this. Oh, what happened to me yesterday, as a matter of fact, when I went to the bank. It may not seem like it's part of ownership, but actually, as I think about it, it could be, where all of them get a piece of the pie. Speaking about the situation a little more specifically, I went to the bank to cash a check. The check was in my name, on my account. I filled it out. I signed it, gave my ID.
It was written to you,
by me,
on your account. Okay.
On my check with my name on it. And it wasn't like it was this huge amount of money. And I sent my ID card with it. And I was at the drive-thru, sent my ID card with it. And also my ATM card. And they took several minutes before they did anything. And then they asked me through the drive-thru if I had my cell phone on me. I'm like, that's an odd thing. What do I need my cell phone for? And they said, well, we need your cell phone to verify it, or whatever they said. But since I didn't have my cell phone on me, because I'm one of these people that I'm not joined at the hip with my phone, and I didn't have my cell phone on me. And so they said, well, you're going to have to go inside to cash it. It wasn't even a lot of money. I'm going to have to go inside to cash it. And so I went inside to cash it. Came home and told Angela about it. And and it turns out, after I got home and checked my phone, they had sent like a message to my phone that was going to make it so that I would have to like put a code in or whatever, which means that basically they're sending a message to a phone or a phone number that's on the account and saying, someone's trying to cash a check. Do you know who this is, or whatever? And as I thought about that, I mean, the more I thought about it, the more it bothered me. And we just went into a little bit of a discussion about the big ways and the small ways that they use to just siphon our energy, or to inconvenience us, or whatever. And back
it's
to
like time ownership, energy ownership.
Right. And so whether it's that, or asking for your ID if you're trying to go to a pool, or you're on a golf course and they want to know who you are and what you're doing and all this different. They feel that they have this right to just come up to us and ask us for our papers, as it were. And we're supposed to just give it to them because they have this thing in them where they're just constantly trying to own us, right? And have us subservient to them. Anyway, yeah, you know how I was feeling about that. And then I thought about the second incident. In the same day, went to a credit union to get some money, and I went inside this time. Everybody's wearing masks. Masks are mandatory. The guy before me was this white guy, and he got $5,000 out, and I'm the only one in line behind him, and he got $5,000 out of the bank, and the whole time he's standing there, he's talking to the teller, they're doing whatever, and she gives him $5,000. He walks out. I go in to get my little bit of money, right, and before I get mine, she asked me to lower my mask so she could see my face real quick. And I had to do that. And then, and then she gave me the little bit, but she didn't ask the guy before me. And I didn't even realize it until I got home and started thinking about it because of thinking about the other thing that had just happened to me right before that. And I told Angela about it. I was like, now that I think about it, she never asked this guy to drop his mask, and he's getting $5,000 out, like Eddie Murphy said, $5,000. And I'm thinking that was on Beverly Hills Cop at the beginning when he was in the cigarette truck. But
cigarette truck?
Yeah, he's in the cigarette truck at the beginning of Beverly Hills Cop. A truck that has cigarettes in it.
But it's like going to a store to restock up their cigarette supply?
Right, and he told the guy I need $5,000. But anyway, she gave the guy $5,000, didn't ask him to do anything. I'm going in here to get my little piddly money, and I got to lower my mask so she can see. It's just incidents like those are not by accident, and it's all part of this whole. It just made me think of the system of white supremacy in general, where what I said to you, where it's almost like they have like these meetings, and the people are mad because they can't do black people the way they used to. They don't have to stand to the side of the sidewalk when we walk past anymore. I want the good old days to come back. And then have the leader say, just calm down. There's still things that you can do. Where do you work? I work at a bank. Well, whenever you get a black person, you just make them do this or make them do that or have them do this. Or if you work in a restaurant, you just have them do it. Everybody can get a piece of abusing them. All you have to do is be a little bit creative. So that's basically how I see it. So
we can all own them. We all a part of this. Yeah. When I brought up the subject of ownership, it was kind of based on the conversation that we were having today in terms of our relationships with our siblings and our children or toward our parents, and kind of how we process that. Not us, we would whatever. But I wasn't thinking of it in the context of ownership of black people, and I have ownership in quotes by whites. But it does make me think about this idea of, I think a lot of times when we're processing things, we think that it's okay to do certain things to others, but not to us. And I kind of had to realize a while ago, like, I don't necessarily believe in hierarchies. Like, I don't think that hierarchies are good. I don't think that hierarchies are really humane personally. But I think that a lot of times we're in support of hierarchies as long as I'm not at the top, or as long as I'm at the top, I'm all in favor of a hierarchy. Or as long as I'm not at the very bottom, I'm all in favor of a hierarchy. And I actually think that I feel like if it's not good for me, then it's not good for anybody. Some things, like right is right. And I think that we think of that sometimes in terms of ownership as well. Like, ownership is good as long as I'm not the one who's owned. If I'm controlling you and your behavior, or trying to control you and manage your behavior and manage your value systems and your beliefs, hey, I'm all for it. But when you try to own me, then we have a problem. So just that whole like principles, not personalities
Right.
thing, like kind of really trying to get to the core or get at core issues of correctness, rightness, justice, outside of the personalities.
Mhm.
So yeah, that's what I wasn't actually thinking of it in the context of
Right. What you were saying, I watch a lot of movies. That made me think of on Planet of the Apes,
Mhm.
when Taylor's character, played by Charlton Heston, is the original Planet of the Apes, and he, I know, I'm geek, but he was talking to Dr. Zaius, and he said, "I'm trying to figure out how this whole upside down world, came into being." And Zaius said, it's played by Maurice Evans, but Zaius said to him, and I'm paraphrasing, he said, "Yeah, you would think this is an upside down system, seeing as you're at the bottom of it."
Mm.
And so that seems to me to be the attitude of a lot of people who are at the top. They're like, "Oh, you're just mad because you're at the bottom,"
Mhm.
and I don't think that it's that. I don't like hierarchy myself,
Mhm.
and I really have an issue with this stuff. And this when I hear someone talk about, your majesty or your excellency or your, and I'm like, "Get the F out of here
Mhm.
with that. You put your pants on just like I do, or
Mhm.
skirt on just like any other one, or have a toilet in your house too, and it stinks." So I'm like, don't come to me with this. And like in church, they used to say, there's no big I's and little U's, even though that is the structure.
They
But-
say that in theater too.
Right.
They say there are no small parts, only small actors.
Right. And what? I actually think that really, I actually think that that's true.
There are small parts, but sometimes an actor can make a small part really memorable.
That's
but I
right.
believe that there are small parts.
James Woods, in one of the first movies he was ever in, the director said that he kept horning his way into the scene. He was trying to, he was just a bit actor at that time, and he just always found a way to somehow get into into the scene. It was pretty funny, but that's it is how you approach it. But yeah, when it comes to like putting somebody up on a pedestal and all this, and I'm like, I feel that everybody is basically the same.
Mm-hmm.
As far as their worth as a human being.
Mm-hmm.
When I see these movies, or even in real life, we must save the president. I'm like, you're trying to save the president or this princess or this king or whatever, and 5,000 and 8,000 people getting killed all around you, trying to save this one person. These people got families, loved ones, hopes, dreams, plans, schemes, and everything else.
Mm-hmm.
So why is this one person's life so much more important than anyone else's?
Mm-hmm.
And going back to the idea of ownership, I think that actually when a person is in the mindset of ownership, and it doesn't matter whether it's a parent or a parent to child relationship, a business relationship as far as on a job, or I don't like the terminology, but I'll use it in this one case, like slave to master, master to slave, or authority to whoever.
Mm-hmm.
To me, it's a sign of an abusive relationship, because you feel like you own somebody. That's like, I'm in a relationship with a woman and I think I own them.
Mm-hmm.
Then that's what makes me start acting like a freaking nut.
Mm-hmm.
Who are you talking to? Why is that guy looking at you like that? How the heck? I'm minding my own business. I can't help somebody looking at me.
Mm-hmm.
Well, why was that guy talking to you? I can't help somebody talking to me. What the hell?
Mm-hmm.
That's that ownership crap, and relationships becoming violent.
Mm-hmm.
It happens with children too. Is you think you own your child, and if they're not acting the way that you think that they should, the next thing you know is a bunch of violence,
Right.
whether verbal or physical.
Right.
And So it's in the relationship of black people and white people. They think they own us. So
Mhm.
if we don't do what they think we should be doing, here comes the violence. But that's my spin.
Yeah. On the relationship, going back a little bit, you and I in the past have had a difference of opinion, but maybe your opinion will shift. But I actually think of, when you're in partnership in marriage, journeying with someone that, and I've said this before, I don't really believe so much in this idea that, oh, I commit my life to you forever and ever. I just feel that I commit to you this moment and to be honest and truthful to you as I grow and develop as a human being. And as you grow and develop as a human being, I ask you to be honest with me. So like, I don't feel any way necessarily about divorce, or like someone who's like, 20 years ago, they said, I'll love you forever. And then, 20 years later, they're like, I think I want to move on, or I need to move on, or, I don't know. Personally, that's something that I just feel like as a whole human being, I feel that they're perfectly entitled. We're all perfectly entitled to feel how we feel and to grow and develop and change. And, things may look different, from the outside looking in. I remember Millard, who was married to my mom and was in a part of my life since I was about 8. I remember him saying, when you meet someone and you think you want to go on a date with them, you hope that the same person that you met is the same person who shows up on the date. When you start dating a person and you think, ooh, I want to be in a committed relationship with them, it's kind of like a leap of faith, and you hope that the same person you've been dating is the same person who shows up in that committed relationship. And when you get married to someone, you don't really know what you're getting until you get married. The person you've been dating and having a good time with, a lot of times we have ideas about marriage or whatever, and you get married to somebody and, it's a different situation than when y'all were dating and carefree or whatever. So I personally kind of feel like that's a part of, I guess, the other side of ownership is freedom. I just kind of feel like, I really am prayerful and hopeful to be respectful of people's humanity and people's, just the fact that they, it's like my dog Bella, like, she a dog, and she have wants and needs and desires and things she like and things she don't like. And I mean, that's like, if a dog, even I get like living with her, I'm like, even a dog, has a will and a person that, so surely, I can try to find that and honor it and respect it in people.
Well, just as with many things about us, we don't see necessarily eye to eye on that, but just as with many things with it, it's very nuanced to me, because I don't disagree with you. I'm like this. For me, the goal is to never separate. For me, I didn't get married to get divorced. I didn't get married to split up. And I personally don't think anybody does. But if one person starts having if one or both people start having issues, and depending on the severity of the issues, and if it's something that can't be fixed, then you should go your separate ways, because it's better for all concerned, number one. And number two, when you don't feel like you own somebody, which I never have, I never have and never will. I've been divorced, and I've had breakups and all this stuff. No stalking, no, none of this crazy stuff. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so it's because I think people who stalk people and all this are in that category of you feel like you own them somehow. But it's just like you said.
I feel like Trayvon Martin being followed down the road was a stalking. I feel like that woman you talk about with I don't know her name. I wish I could call her name, but the president who, one of his enslaved people got away and the monster hunted her and stalked her.
Yeah, freaking George Washington.
For the rest of his life.
Right.
I feel like it's an illness. It's crazy.
Right. And he was upset. It's an obsession.
It's an obsession. Like, why can't this child be walking down the street? Why are you following this child? I'm talking about Trayvon Martin.
Right.
What is? Yeah, it's
right.
That's
and the police were telling him not to follow him or
right,
to
the
mess with him.
crazy ass, even the crazy ass police were telling him,
Right,
and you
and-
know they the
Right.
one of the seats of craziness.
And just as a side note, excuse me, the fact that he got off the hook with that, you know, and excuse me, and walked, it pretty much tells you everything you need to know about where, as a black person, tells you everything you need to know about where you are.
Mm-hmm.
You know, sometimes I do want to say that to our people, like, do you know where you are?
Mm-hmm.
Because I know where I am.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, him walking, there's no way on this planet that he should walk, but at the same time, within this construct, it makes sense.
Within this construct, it totally
Makes sense.
any and every random white person has, in this context, I don't believe
Right.
that any monster owns a person, or I don't even want to say another person. When we were reading Walter Rodney today, and this was actually something, you know, it was a repeat, but I'm just thinking about the choice of using culture versus civilization. When he was referring to kind of analyzing African cultures before contact with European cultures, and also the idea. I know I said I really enjoyed you know, seeing someone's analysis of that, but where he's like, you know, I this is my interpretation. We're not gonna, this so-called European quote unquote civilization, you know, is the evidence of what it is in, you know, capitalism, is in feudalism, is in the culture that they have created.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, I wouldn't call it civilized either. I wouldn't call it humane.
Right.
But it definitely seems to be a culture of where there's this, they seem to have ideas built into their systems of ownership.
Right.
Like if you look at feudalism, I did a little bit, but the people were tied to the land. They went
Right.
with the land. It's like they were grass or dirt or something. I don't know. And then, you know, their system of slavery, their system of capitalism, you know, their prison industrial complex. It seems like just in general, this idea of ownership is a big part of, you know, their systems.
Right. And that's the thing.
Their culture.
You know, I started reading Tyranny's book. That's African Esquire. And at the very beginning of it, she's talking about.
What's the name of the book again?
Oh, brother.
We talked about this last week.
Yeah, I can't.
It's something about children, child welfare systems of something.
Right, I'd have to look it up. See, when I'm reading, I can't remember because it's kind of, it has a long byline, but the name of the book is short. I can look it up. But at the beginning of the book, she was just discussing how the child welfare system and the foster care system was designed as a way to control black people.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there would be a few white people in it, but it was mostly a way of controlling black people, walking into their house, looking at what they had. And I told you, when I was growing up, that's what we had that like every month.
Mm-hmm.
Some strange white woman walking through the house, making sure there's no man there, making sure that we didn't have anything that looked like it was expensive or anything. It was a hot mess. And all of it goes back to this idea of we somehow own you. And if we feel like, I won't say if they feel like their ownership is slipping away, they're always coming up with different ways to make their system redundant, so that if this starts to fail, they already have this in place.
And I feel like if by pulling children away from their families and their communities and abusing them, then you're priming them to. That's like part of the prison industrial complex just starting earlier.
Right.
Prison industrial complex is, you know, the school system is part of that, and that's part of their system of enslavement. So I feel like it's all part of the same thing of you know, owning us body and mind and time and energy and all of that.
Right.
So,
Now, the title of the book is Fostering False Identity.
Fostering, like foster care.
Right. Fostering False Identity, the Child Welfare System's Design of Social Control of the Black Family.
By T.M. Cherie.
Cherie.
Tyranny.
Tyranny, Cherie. I have I have problems pronouncing it. I always just say African Esquire.
If I think about it like TY, like tyranny,
Right.
then I can say. But if
But I don't think it's tyranny. I think it like flows
Tyranny.
together more.
don't
Maybe
know.
if she hears hears this, she'll say Ayapo. You pronounce it. You pronounce my name like this. And she'll say it slow.
And she says it all the time.
Right.
But anyway.
So anyway, that's the title of her book. So
I guess in terms of Drapetomaniac podcast and getting free, and for me, my take is so I try to look at myself and get free of ideas of is something is okay for somebody else, but it's not okay for me. And of course we're individuals. So I don't eat meat. So a hamburger is okay for somebody else and it's not okay for me. That doesn't mean that I have to impose that on them. I don't mean it like
Right.
that. But I just mean in terms of looking at rightness and justice and how, I expect to be treated as a human being, and how, I look at the treatment of other human beings who may live differently from me, look different from me, have different value system from me, or sexuality, like we were talking about, our experiences of church folks and some of my theories, as an outsider looking in, and kind of what that means and how that shows up, and how I really try to, I try to be respectful of people. I want people to be respectful of me.
Right.
I can't control what other people are toward me, but I try to take ownership of myself and my behavior, and give people the space to be free. Not that I can give it, but I'm just saying, in the way that I think about people and analyze situations, that's a goal of mine, to kind of find those places in me where the value system of this society, the twisted BS, has kind of crept in, and where I'm like, oh well, it's okay to dog this person out because they're gay, or it's okay to dog that person out because they're biracial, or I don't know, or because they're a coon, or I don't, I don't use that type of language, but I'm just saying, whereas I wouldn't want to be on the receiving end of that.
Right.
So trying to recognize the humanity and the rightness, just the principle aside from the personality. So not just the person, but the principle.
Well, what goes on with our people is that we don't need anybody. And what I mean by that is we invent on our own. We are innovative and clever and funny and rhythmically gifted, artistically gifted, athletically gifted in the sciences. And so, you could just go on and on and on. And we're kind of self-contained as a people. If all other peoples on the face of the earth disappeared overnight, and all you had left was black people, we build things, we create things, and so on. And it seems to me that white people, and this is I'm just going to be blunt about it. This is how it seems to me. White people don't invent jack, except a bunch of mess and confusion. And when you look at their history, they're good at creating weapons of torture, and they're creative as I don't know what when it comes to creating stuff to harm people and to torture them, or to kill people in mass, to use steal from people, right.
people, and
so it's not that they're not creative, and it's not that they're not intelligent. They have a kind of intelligence, just like they have a kind of melanin, but it's not like ours. But when your pineal gland is calcified, it keeps you from feeling any kind of empathy for anybody, and so it kind of blocks your humanity, and so you can create all this destructive crap and think that who in the world is going to come up with genetically modifying corn, right? And then making it so no one else can use anything but that. and then it won't reproduce itself. That's not natural.
Right. I was just going to say the whole idea of coming up with seedless. To me, you know how I feel about seedless grapes and seedless water. I'm like, I don't. It's like it's counter. It just confounds me. Like a fruit is the seed surrounded by the flesh. So if you take away the seed, if it can't reproduce, I just kind of feel like, yeah, I don't know.
Well, and that's the thing. There's some things that you can cross or you can alter, but it's not unnatural. Like if you take a horse and a donkey, then you get a mule. A mule is a mule, but they can't reproduce.
Right. Do they naturally have sex with each other in nature, or do people make them do that?
But I don't think people make them do it.
Okay, well,
but I don't know. Maybe they do. But I'm just saying, it's not like they took them into a lab and they went to a lab and created a mule. So it's not that it's unnatural per se. It's just it's just something that it's just the same way that dogs were bred. Bella's a mutt, but she's not unnatural. She's a dog.
Are you sure she's not unnatural?
But I don't know. Sometimes I wonder. But when you take something into a lab, you take herbs and you take medicinal plants and so on. You take them into a lab, basically pull out everything that makes it work, and then synthesize it and put it into a pill and then send it back out. See, that to me is a bunch of mess.
Now that process I don't understand, but I understand like with brown enriched white rice is like they take the nutrients out of brown rice, they take the shell off and then they enrich it and it's a lower quality and it's some bull. Or enriched white bread, it's like it's a lower quality and it's some bull. Just go with the whole thing.
Right, for the purposes of making it have like a longer shelf life or whatever. But the point still remains that it's like whatever they create is kind of counterintuitive or counter life.
And I think that's part of that ownership thing too, because anybody can go out and get some garlic. You can grow some garlic, get some garlic. But if you synthesize it and do this and make a pill, then that's something that they can own.
Right.
Drugs they can own. Or if they, I guess, make their corn that can't reproduce, then you have to keep coming to them because they own it, and you have
that's the truth of it. Because you can't put a patent on a rose, but you can take a rose and manipulate it and synthesize it and all this stuff, and then get a patent on it,
and then
tell people that they can't buy roses anymore. You have to get it specifically for me, and you can't, and all the money's just going to go to me, and it's a mess.
Patent is their system. They can, I feel like they rules that they make up. They can make up rules that say anything. So
but
they could put a patent on my baby toe, but that don't mean
But I'm just saying that one of the helpful things for our people is to be aware of what's going on around us and look at the trends and look at the way that things are going. In technology, for those of you who are like kind of techie, just look at what they're doing now with, like I told you the other day, with like Microsoft Office and that suite, the Adobe suites. Three different 3D they come from, like, not Softimage, but I can't remember the name of the company.
They're creating systems where they own it and you have to rent from them.
Right,
you can't own it anymore.
As opposed to you being able to buy it on a disc and you own it, and now it's yours. They're setting up the system in a way that you no longer can purchase Microsoft Office on a disc anymore, and you own it. You can only rent it either monthly, or they call it leasing it. You lease it monthly or lease it yearly, and have to just constantly keep paying them over and over and over, as opposed to like I have mine on a disc and I don't need their upgrades. But even with that,
they make it obsolete.
They make it obsolete and make it so it won't. So it's not compatible with anything.
Play nicely with others. And I think when we look also at technology,
that's why I love open source. But go on.
I think also when we look at a lot of technology, right? Not all, but a lot of it. There's this that back to the idea of ownership. It's the owning of your behavior. the owning of your information, the owning of your buying patterns, the owning of your
Right.
what are you like in selling that, like it's like this idea, this obsession with owning,
Right.
what they own and what they don't own and what they can. And actually, I think we've talked about this a lot, but this idea of hoarding and like hoarding as a mental illness, and it's sort of like, how much, like, why do you need to own? Like, I want to own all the information. I want to own all the people.
Right.
I want to own all the software. And then they have to come to me and rent. Then they have to, I have all it, like, but it's just kind of like, it's too much. And it's a sickness from my perspective.
I agree.
I'm like, it's too much. It's too much.
Yeah, I agree. But it goes back to, I'm trying to remember what you were talking about at the very beginning. Like the owner, quote unquote owner class, they don't see a problem with people not owning anything. Well, you don't need to own Microsoft Office. You don't need to own the Adobe Suite. You don't need to own physical media. Just get on Disney Plus and stream it. Just get on HBO Max and stream it. You don't need to go buy it anymore and have the disc. So you can watch it whenever you want to and only pay me once. But for them, they're saying it's all. You don't need to own anything. In the meantime, their goal is to own everything.
Right, and to have you sign away yourself to them so that they own you.
Right.
Oh, you want this app? Well, sign here saying that you agree so you can use it. Oh, you want this? And before.
And let me have and while you're at it, let me have access to your bank account so I can pull the money out at will. Once a month or whenever I feel like it. And that's crazy talk.
Yes, it is to me. It's
so
crazy.
Anyway.
So I guess my theme or whatever is always kind of bringing it back home to myself and thinking about, like, okay, if we're talking about ownership and this concept being unhealthy, aside from the fact that I feel like there's this name Iona, and some of our people used to name their children Iona, like I own her. Like, I feel like the concept of me owning myself and being responsible for myself, I think that I'm with that. But aside from that, I guess just really inviting myself and everyone to think about the things that we, even if it's junk that we own, that maybe we can release, maybe some ideas that we own that we might want to let go of, maybe some ways that we're relating to ourselves or other people that reflect an unhealthy, obsession, stalker nature, ownership, perspective that we might want to, readjust, examine, just look at. So that's all I got. I think.
And that's pretty much all I got. But I appreciate the discussion. I thank you for the subject. I really enjoy talking to you.
Yeah, you're a sweet baby. I enjoy talking to you too.
Yeah, so that's about it. Y'all can't. We getting ready to go into some private time, so y'all can't hear the rest of this. So this is Ayapo Yapa, the HDIC. That is the head drapetomaniac in charge. And I'd just like to mention the new book by Anjali Shabazz, the author of This Black. She has a new book out that's called Furnace of Affliction. And this book is about how to, it has like different radiation cures in it and supplements you can take, plus explaining the situation with what happened with Fukushima and the radiation that we're now saturated by around the world, and what you can do about it for you and your loved ones. It's available on Amazon, and I think that you can get it on what's the digital Amazon platform there?
Kindle? No.
For Kindle. For Kindle or digitally you can get it. But I know you can get it in hardback, not hardback, but softback, because I have it, physical copy.
Oh, physical copy.
Yeah. So
you own, you have it and you own it.
Right.
No one can take it,
right.
swipe it.
Yeah, I heard Anjali just started making them all digital, so you have to pay her every month.
Well, you can just rent it, borrow it for a few days and read it.
Right.
Why you need to own it forever?
No, we're just kidding. No, you need to own it because This isn't a novel. Furnace of Affliction is a reference book, so you don't need to read it straight through. As a matter of fact, it almost won't even work that way. It's the type of book that you jump around in, and that's about it. And this is Ayapa Yapa. I already said it, but the HDIC, that's the head Drapetomaniac in charge. And I'm with my lovely, most excellent wife.
You want me to speak now?
Yes.
Okay,
Wishing you peace and blessings, safety, security, and sanity through separation. And until next week at the same time, we will see you on the run.
Run!
For your life. Peace.
Hey, for real. That's your topic right there. Run for your life.
Run for your life.
And thank you again for listening to the Drapetomaniac podcast. Tune in next week at doiamedia.com. DOIAMEDIA.com. And again, we'll catch you on the run. Peace.